Welcome back, everybody. My name's Ben. I'm thrilled to be here as Man & Machine's Business Development Manager for the southeast of England in the manufacturing industry. I hope you enjoyed the insightful iLogic and data management case studies we've had so far. I feel like they demonstrate solutions to some issues that many of our customers have been having, so I really think they hopefully added a lot of value to you guys. I am very privileged to be introducing our presentation for Autodesk's latest product, Fusion 360. So one of the products that Autodesk is putting in the most development and listening to their customer base the most. So I really think that Cameron's presentation is going to show you some things that you might be able to include in your own processes and your own workflows that you might not have considered before, especially considering Fusion is such a key part of your product design manufacturing collection that you may not have touched or may not have used as much as some of your other products. So I am happy to pass over to Cameron now. I'm sure you'll enjoy his presentation. Please sit back and relax and enjoy the presentation. I hope it sparks a little bit of your imaginations.
Cool. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Yeah, great to see everyone on the live streams and all. Hopefully, yeah, you're going to enjoy a great session of the what's new inside of Fusion 360. So a little bit different to some of the other sessions that we've gone through for the morning so far. In that Fusion 360 doesn't quite do releases per year. We're doing a continual release throughout the entire year. The Fusion team tend to work within a sort of 6-week window, so they're pumping up updates quite frequently from there. So just going to show you some of the updates that we've received over the last 12 months or so, and hopefully some really great features for those of you that might not have seen Fusion in a little while. Those of you that are working in it day to day might not be aware of. And yeah, just show you a few of the handy things we've got there. So we'll start off inside of the main environment within our design environment. We've got a few really nice bits of functionality that have been added in over the last few updates. The first one being inside of our parameters, we now have the ability to defer updates. So we can go and basically create a whole lot of updates immediately without them being pushed through to the rest of our model. We've got the ability to change any parameters that we might need to make the adjustments to, and then push those out as an update all at once at the end. So if I grab this window over here and just show you, I'll go to another view. I'll just drag the model off to the side there, and we're going to look at the underside of this bracket over here. And we've got a model with the different parameters inside of this list over here, and we've got a revolute joint that I want to make an adjustment to. So we have an offset. So we've got this bracket as a whole, and if we're wanting to make any adjustments to this going forward, we want to look at the ability to make adjustments to the geometry itself, and therefore we've established that in this model, these legs that occur at the bottom over here and the way they're connected, they collide with the main frame itself. So we've got the ability to make the adjustments to either the angle offset or the X, Y, and Z offset from inside of the parameters itself. So let me just adjust the table just so you can see me a bit better. So we've got a Z offset that we've got the ability to adjust from inside of the parameters table over here. And as I say, we got the ability to adjust these parameters without it actually automatically updating inside of the model. So if I deselect automatic update from the table over here and make the adjustments to our parameter, I can come in and say that I want a -7mm offset on the Z offset of that alignment. Now you can see as soon as I've hit enter on there, nothing has changed. I could go in and make any adjustments to any other positioning, any other parameters inside of the model itself. And only once I'm ready for those updates to occur will I then hit apply, and then those changes are being made. It will tell me that these are being applied at this moment in time. And if I hit apply there, you can see how that has now made that adjustment from there. So nothing too new with regards to parameters, but just the way we deal with the parameters and the way they will automatically update inside of the model space, which is great when you do have a few conflicting parameters that have been quite difficult to make the adjustments to previously. We've then got the ability to defer those. I'll hit OK on there now because that's the only thing I really need to do inside of that, the parameters itself. And today I just want to have a look at one of the other really great tools that have been introduced over the last while. It's been in preview for a while, but in the last update or so, it's been released fully. And that's the ability we have to create automated models inside of Fusion 360. So in the background, it works in a similar way to generative design. However, it doesn't contain any of the stress analysis in any way. So what I want to do is just readjust now. We've repositioned these legs to where they would need to be. I just need to go and remove the visibility of the existing stand in there. And we've got a few components that we want to be connected to in one of these tripod legs. I think it was this one here. Let me just double check. We've got a pin which is in here. Let me just push these away ever so slightly so I can see the screen a bit better. And we've got a base down here at the bottom that we're wanting to connect our part to. So in this tripod over here, I'm just going to enable the visibility of these two rings that I want to connect to. I've just done that inside of their models themselves just for the ease of use on that one. And then within my current active model, this one over here, I should have a part, not in there apparently, in one of the other subcomponents, I should have a leg. Doesn't matter too much for the sake of this one. I don't have it there, it's fine. I'll just create a quick sketch on here and just generate a new model from there. So wanting to connect just this one leg, we will then create a pattern of it around the rest of the component. So just wanted to connect that leg to the base over here. I can come in and quickly create a sketch, something like that, and something like that, maybe a little bit smaller on there. Normally try to be precise, but in this case, I'll just go and create a line, something like that, and another one like that, and just create an angle between these two. I didn't want a horizontal constraint on there. Let me delete that very quickly. And we can go and create a line, something like that, and dimension between those at 120 degrees. Or do we need 60 degrees? Let's go for 60 degrees on this one. Something like that. We'll make it do as it is. So I'll hit finish sketch on there. Just extrude that out ever so slightly. I think I've got about a 1 mil extrusion on there, and I will create it as a new body on here. So basically we want to be able to connect the base that's connected to the bottom of the stand itself to the legs over here. And using automated modeling, we can essentially tell Fusion that we want to connect surfaces together, and Fusion can then generate the model that then comes along with that. So as soon as I enter the automatic generate or the automatic modeling environment, I get a prompt to ask me which faces I'd like to connect. So in this case, I'll go and grab the top face of that model that I just created on there. I'll then also select the outside faces of the rings that I want to connect to my legs themselves as well. And then we've also got the ability to add in bodies that we want to avoid. So again, those of you that are familiar with generative design inside of Fusion 360, you'll be familiar with the options that we have available to this. But you can see really simple. We're just saying the areas that we want to connect and the ones that we want to avoid. Once we've got that selected, we can then hit generate shape. This will then go off and start to generate those shapes for us. This will give us a max of about 6 alternatives that we can use, and those alternatives are then broken down into two subsets really. We've got smooth connections, which are the first 3, and we've got sharp connections or squarer connections, I guess, which are the bottom 3 over here. And as they start to generate, you'll notice that alternatives 1 and 4, as well as alternatives 2 and 5, and then 3 and 6 work in much the same way. It look very similar in their shape, but we'll have between the 3 of those, we'll have very different shapes within their groups. So we've got the smooth connections. Once these start generating, I'll just give a bit of a preview of this one over here. You can see that alternative 3 has a very specific shape to it, which is sort of off to the side over there. And if I had to go and look at alternative 6 in this case, got a very similar shape, But the main differences then between these two will be we've got sharper edges on alternative 6. It does have the sharper corners, whereas alternative 3 has the smoother blending into the original surface, the shape that we chose from there. But from here we can go and compare the different results that we're getting. So in this case I've got alternative 1, which actually looks quite similar to 3, but then I've also got alternative 2, and then again alternative 5 in this case will look very similar to alternative 2. Never thought I'd be saying alternative this many times this morning. Afternoon already. And then the other option we have now, which has been introduced fairly recently on top of the rest of the automated modeling, is the ability to then adjust the thickness of the model itself. So using this little slide over here, we can actually make the model, the material itself a little thicker or a little thinner and adjust that slide from there. And once we've decided on the one that we want, it's then just a case of hitting OK on the dialog box over here. I might want one with a bit more of a sharper transition, especially if I'm trying to pattern these around. I would want sharper edges on the side, just to make sure that this is going in correctly. One thing that is interesting to note on this one, I did mention earlier, I didn't get the model lined or the extrusion lined up in the greatest way. There isn't proper symmetry in the way that it connects to the bottom plate over here, and you'll notice how the model has actually taken that into consideration. It's got more surface area on the right hand side to connect with, and that's why we got a bit of a lopsided model over there. But as soon as I'm happy with that and I've chosen the thickness that I want to the component itself, I can hit OK on there now. It'll then go and generate that as a 3D model that I can then make adjustments to if I needed to. So you can see that we've now got this model perfectly made inside here that will include the geometry that I told it to. And we've now got that in the timeline down at the bottom. So we've got the automated model feature that has been created. And then we've also got some preserves. And then we've got a organic model over here, which is basically a T-spline model. I can go in at a later point once that's been created and actually go in and edit that T-spline model. So if there are any features that you wanted to tweak ever so slightly, any of the surfaces you might want to adjust, you might want to make certain regions thinner than others, we've got the ability to use our normal T-spline or form modeling in this regard to go and make those adjustments. So if I double click on any of those edges over there, I can go and modify these, where I can then go in and let me just go and grab the correct coordinate system. World space looks right, fine. I can then go in and scale that if I wanted to. I can move this around and adjust it to my heart's content. I can make certain areas a little bit smaller. I can maybe shift that down just to stretch the model a bit. I might want a little bit more of a gap along that region over there, so I can go again and scale that down just in one region, maybe even from the beginning over there. And any adjustments I make to that, as soon as I hit OK on there now and go back into my 3D model, if I finish form on here, that's then the adjustment to the model itself, to the actual feature itself. So that's within the modeling environment or the design environment. The other updates we have are in the drawing environment. Fusion have done a lot of work in creating a lot more functionality inside of the drawing environment. We've seen a huge leap forward over the last 12 months. Even the last 18 months or so, but there's been a really big jump in the last little while. So some of the features that we've got available to us now are the ability to copy an existing sheet across. So if we ever have any information on a particular drawing sheet, and we've done a lot of work on that particular drawing sheet, but we just need a few small things tweaked. We don't necessarily want to change the original one, but we just want to make a few minor tweaks, perhaps even. It's a case of we've got multiple different clients that need different information from there, or different manufacturers that need little bits of information that's ever so slightly different between them. So we've got the ability to right click on any of these sheets now and duplicate that sheet, and it's going to create an exact replica of the original one for us, where we can then adjust this to our heart's content once more, and make any changes that we would want to our model. Perhaps we don't necessarily need a full bill of materials on the model. We might want different views of the model. We might just want just to show a few separate components and change anything from there, but we want to keep the main feel of the drawing exactly the same and have them a little bit more identical in that regard. Another adjustment that they have made to this is they've given us the ability to rotate views inside of our drawing. So if you have placed views down that aren't quite in the correct alignment, say for example these two views over here, and I wanted to rotate them around ever so slightly, I can select the views and I can then go and choose a pivot point and actually rotate those views around. In this case I might want to rotate them about 90 degrees, and you can see how it moves all of the, I didn't need to cancel that, it moves all of the, in this case the balloons, but any other annotations and those along with it as part of that rotation. So again, great bit of functionality, but great bit of adjustment that's occurred in that one, and we can then go and move these models into a better position along the way. I'll go back to the original one, and this is probably one of the biggest changes that they've made inside of the drawing environment. I think they released it towards the end of last year, the November or December update, and that is the adjustments to the document settings. So inside of document settings, we used to have a few options. I think we had 3 or 4 options in the way we could configure the document as a whole. But that setting has gone through a complete overhaul. So now if we go over the document settings in our window over here and grab onto the little cog here to change the document settings, we get an entire window now of different settings that we can actually adjust inside of this particular document, including the font that we're using, the text group, the text height, so whether we're using a small, large or custom, small, medium, large or custom. And you'll notice then as soon as I choose between any of those, the smallest text height then changes, and so do all of them incrementally adjust. So small is anything between 1.8 millimeters and 3.5. Large is anything between 3.5 and 7 millimeters, and the medium is the medium between those. But we can also then set custom ones for each of these as well. So we can go all the way up to 20 millimeters if we wanted to for large text or medium text or anywhere along the way. We've also got the ability to change how our revisions are calculated, whether we're using numbers or numeric values. The line widths we can come in and change. Then we can go all the way down to the annotations that we're using. We can choose the line types that we're using inside of that, the color of the annotations and the dimensions and that are occurring inside here, and also whether there's a gap between the dimension and the component itself when we place those in. So a lot of configuration that we can do there. And on setting those colors, we then have the ability to choose any color that we want to for any of the features. So whether we want to really highlight a particular feature, a particular dimension inside of the our drawing, we can then go and say, well, all of our balloons in this case, if I go and find labels, we've got our, not in there, I think it's down in the table setup. We've got the ability to change the balloon color. So if I wanted, for some reason, a really bright pinkish color over there, I've got the ability to set that on my drawing. As soon as I hit OK, those will then update inside of the drawing view. But then what happens if we've got a whole lot of other drawings that we've already made all of the work to? What happens if we want to go and create sort of a template for this? So this color configuration can be set inside of the template file itself in your drawing templates. But what Fusion have also done is that they've allowed us to then go and grab those settings and bring those settings in from a template file as well. So if I right click on my document settings over here, I can actually go and import document settings, meaning that any drawing that I've gone and configured and done all of the hard work in setting up and making sure that all of my color schemes are correct and everything is nicely configured, I can then go and grab that from my data set. Here I've got a man and machine template. I can select that. And as soon as that updates, I hit OK on here. Now it's gone in and changed all of those settings in the document settings. As soon as I hit OK on here now, I can then push all of those settings onto this document. So any existing drawings we have, we can then import those settings onto this particular document. And then going forward, we're only using the man and machine template to make sure that, that we're keeping up to our company standard along the way. And then the last update in the drawing environment that I'm really excited about, that's been released, I think, in the last release or the one before that, is we've got the ability now to use some automatic whole center marks as well as center lines. So we can do that from inside of the view itself. So when we place our view down or when we're editing a view, If I just double click on the view itself, we've got the ability to go and grab center marks and center lines based on the type of geometry that was used to create that particular feature in the view itself. So it's going to look throughout our entire view and automatically populate the center marks or center lines based on the type of geometry we've created. So in this regard, I could go and grab center marks for any hole that's being created in this model. In this case, there aren't any holes. I believe these were all used all created using cuts. So you can see as soon as I filter by cuts, we then automatically go in and mark all of those center marks out. If we had any corner rounds over there, we could go and add those in, and any fillets, we could also add center marks to any fillets over there. When we are using those ones, we've got the ability to choose a minimum fillet radius and a maximum fillet radius, so we can then begin to filter those down as well really nicely. We've also then got the ability to grab center lines. So if we have any holes that are cut perpendicular to our view, in this case, I don't think I had any on this particular model from this particular angle, but if I go and grab it from the other view over there, so if I just close this one down and edit this one, you can see as soon as I go and grab either from holes, extruded shapes, or cuts, we've then got the ability to go and automatically mark those center marks in there. And again, those center lines and center marks are grabbing in the new color and the new configurations that we've got inside of the drawing environment. So really exciting functionality that's being added into the drawing environment, and really starting down this line of automatic drawings and being able to get a lot of information out there without having to manually go and add all of that information in all at once. Moving on from the drawing environment, we then have the some of the updates that have occurred inside of the manufacturing environment. So the biggest one for me is the ability now we have, or the changes rather that they've made to the selection of features inside of the manufacturing environment. For those of you that are in the manufacturing quite frequently, you've probably noticed those changes already. Those of you that have tried it a few times might have found selecting certain features for certain toolpaths, for certain strategies, a little bit time consuming, a little bit tricky at some points. You might find that one particular strategy has a really great method of picking up holes, for instance, whereas the strategy you need is really tricky to get that functionality. So what the team at Fusion have done is we've now got the ability to in any single selection, or rather any single strategy, we've got the exact same selection options available to us. So whether I'm using 2D strategies, 3D strategies, drilling, multi-axis, any of the functionality that I might want to use, if I go into my geometry tab when adding these toolpaths in, we've got a whole new revamped geometry section over here. And inside of this, we've now got the ability to use any of the selection options across any of the strategies. So whether we're wanting to use chain selection, and we're going to go and grab any of the edges, you can see how it's automatically only looking for chains on this particular one. We can then choose whether we're using a closed chain or open chain, where we only want to select a single edge along the way. We can then start to limit the selection on these particular items as well. If we instead want to go and look for face contours, we can go and use face contours here, and we can then choose faces rather than edges along the way. And by combining our selections, if I look at this from the top over here, we can then decide whether the loop that we are selecting is going around the outer perimeter only, as is the case over here. So we're only looking for outer loops, or we're only looking for inner loops, or we're looking for a combination of the two. We've also got the ability to use the option here to select same plane faces. So if we've selected a face over here on this plane, if I tick that now, it should go and select all other faces that are on the exact same plane, which makes, again, the selection process so much easier if you are grabbing a whole lot of pockets that aren't necessarily connected, and you just want to pick everything at the exact same height. So it makes that function a lot quicker and a lot easier along the way. There are a few more other options, including the pocket selection and pocket recognition, which is a great one, where we can set limitations in the pockets that we're looking for, and Fusion will automatically go and look for those particular pockets to, again, our heart's content. The last few options are silhouette, so it'll go and grab the entire silhouette of your component. This is great for contouring and anything that you're needing to trace along edges for. We can set limitations on the silhouette itself, but automatically it'll go and grab the silhouette of our component based on our orientation, based on the direction of the Z axes. So this is really great advancement to the selection option that they've added in there. And then the last one is the ability to grab from sketch profiles, which we've had again before, but we've now got this across every single strategy, which just makes selecting the exact bit of material, the exact portion of the model, that much easier and that much better going forward. Now, some of the other additions that we have are part of the manufacturing extension. So this is an extension to Fusion 360. It is an add-on that you would have to go through and purchase a license for or use credits for in the extension manager. And those options are available inside of our multi-axis or inside of, in this case, we've got those options inside of our 3D modeling. And those are the deburring and cornering functionalities. And they're both pretty much opposite to each other. So deburring will go and machine along any sharp corners that you might have left a little bit of material, a little bit of sharp edges that might be missed by going over with different tools. And essentially we'll just take into consideration any previous strategies, and then use the rest machining capabilities inside of Fusion 360 just to identify where some of the edges might be located. The other option is then cornering. So again, with cornering, we've got the ability to, if I go and open that up over here, in the strategy itself, we essentially want to go and choose the, if I go and grab it from, I'm just trying to see in here, in the strategy itself, we've got the ability to check based on a previous strategy. So there we go, reference tool. I was looking in the wrong section. In the rest machining section, we can go and reference another tool. So any tool that has been used previously, we can then say, well, we know that that particular tool might have been a bit too large to go into certain corners. So we want to go in and use this corner strategy to go into any of the sharper corners, into any of the tighter corners that the larger tool wouldn't have been able to go through. So I've gone and created those strategies in here, and we've got the ability to set certain limitations on the offset of that. So based on the size of the tool, we then tackle pockets that might be a little larger or a little smaller than that. So you can see if I view this from the top over here, if I go for a 0.5 mil offset, it then just goes and tackles the areas and leaves about a 0.5 mil offset along the contours themselves. If I go for a 1 mil, it then makes it and extends it a little bit larger, and we've got a bit more of an offset along the side there. And then if we go for a 3 mil, you can see how it then gradually goes out from the outside and goes in towards the pocket itself. So we're accounting for the cornering, have the larger tool rather, leaving a bit more material behind, and we're going in with a slightly bigger tool path along the way. On the opposite end of that spectrum then, if we have a look at the deburring option, which is then going to go tackle any external sharp corners, so anything along the top of ridges and that, we can then go and have a look at the different strategies that would occur with that one, and that one's got the ability to use 3, 4, and 5 axis strategies. So if we had to just use a 3-axis strategy, you'd see we come in with from the Z direction straight down into the component, or we could alter that. We can choose the direction that we're machining from, but this will essentially go in and look at any surfaces or any corners, any edges that are available for machining along that particular part. If we then go and add some 4-axis strategies, that's then going to choose a rotational axis, so that we can then go and move around the part following the rotation of a single axis, and then still using the rest of the axes for movement along there. The last one is a 5-axis one, which looks really impressive, but not the most realistic, I suppose, in the way that it works, but still looks amazing when you have a look at it from here. And this is if we've got full 360-degree rotation in all axes, and we're able to tackle our component from all angles. But those we can start to limit the areas of attack, limit the angle of rotation and capabilities, I suppose, of the machines itself. So we can limit that within the configuration itself. So if I go and grab that 90-degree limitation over there, I've set an angle limitation of 90 degrees, so it knows it can only go 90 degrees from the axes, from the primary axes, and therefore you can see how it's able to tackle the material from those different angles. The last one I want to show you inside of the manufacturing environment is the ability we now have for inclined flats. So if I open this one up very quickly and go into my manufacturing environment, for some reason I was in the design. This is a sample file from the Fusion team, but previously with our flat toolpath, if I just go and grab it from here in the 3D strategies panel, we've had the ability to go and attack any surface that is flat. And now predominantly this has been any surface that has been at the horizontal. But we've also had a horizontal toolpath, and the two work in a similar way, but they use a different way of tackling that particular surface. Now what we have the ability to do inside of one of the latest updates is in the multi-axis options. Again, this is a manufacturing extension. Anything working in 4 and 5 axes manufacturing inside of Fusion 360 is manufacturing extension. We've got the ability to machine inclined flats as well. So if I generate this quickly without that enabled and just hit OK on there now, you'll see how it will go in and generate a toolpath that is just on that top face, and anything that is normal to the axes to the Z axis in this case. However, if I go and use the exact same strategy, but enable the inclined flats on this particular one, let me just edit this very quickly. So there's a little bit of a lag on here. If I hit the machining inclined flats and set a minimum and maximum tilt angle, if I bump this up all the way to 90 and hit OK on there now, this will then go and generate and think about the different surfaces that it is able to attack at the different angles. And as soon as I've got that set up there, it does take a little longer than the other options. But as soon as that has generated, you'll see how it's then able to calculate the tool paths on the different surfaces around the side of the component as well. So there we go. As soon as I've made that adjustment, we can set the limitation ourselves. So if you'd prefer a 60-degree angle or a 70-degree angle as a limitation, well, this is very slow. Let me just pan back up to there and we can see that a bit better, and you can use your imagination around the rest of the part. But you can see how it's able to tackle each of the individual pockets and surfaces along the way over there. Awesome. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to quickly move on to the generative design. Not the generative design. Yes, generative design. It is generative design. It's study environment. So some of the new options that they've given us inside of generative design enable us to make the models a little bit more controllable. We've got a bit more options when it comes to creating the studies, and a bit more control as to the outcomes of the studies inside of generative design as a whole. So the two new features that they've allowed us, or they've added to the functionality, are the ability, first of all, to add a point mass into our study environment. Previously, you would have to go in and add loads onto the individual surfaces inside of your study. So we would pick the surfaces that our load is being applied to, and if it's multiple different surfaces, we would kind of have to guess how much of the load is applied to each of those surfaces and presume that the center of gravity is right in the middle of all of those components. Now what we've got the ability to do inside of our design conditions is we've got the ability to set in a point mass. So we've got the ability to add this little point mass in here, and we can say how much this point mass weighs and where the center of gravity of this particular component is located inside of our entire environment. So rather than having to go and try and guesstimate exactly how much of the load will be on the back or the front of the component, and how it's distributed around, all we need to do is find the center of gravity of our model that will need to sit on top of that, or the part that needs to sit on top of that. And then we can move that around in the three-dimensional space. So if I double click on here, you'll see easily enough I can just use the different control nodes to adjust the center of gravity of the component as and where we need to, and then how much that particular component weighs. Once we've got that configured, we can then add that to our study, and then Fusion will do the rest in the generative design interface, and we can then make sure that our components are a bit more rigid, and the center of gravity can be a little bit further away from the center of all of those selections. The other option that we have as well is the ability to assign symmetry planes. So generative design, that's a mouthful, as it is a very, the results that we get out of it are really organic. So we've up until now not had much control as to which components look symmetrical, which components look identical to each other. But we've got the ability now with the symmetry option to ensure that we've got a line of symmetry. So two items will look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I suppose, on either side of that symmetry plane. And we've got the ability to then go and choose which planes we're using along that. And I'll just go into the results really quickly on here and show you the differences that we get from those. So if I deselect the one with those two options selected, a very simple model, I know, but the results that we get here aren't quite exactly what we're expecting. So if I had to open this one up over here and look at it from the top very quickly, once it decides to load, it was loading fine a few minutes ago. It doesn't seem to want to do it. Let me try this one over here, and not so much either. Fine. If I open up the symmetry and point mass over here, you'll see we've got study 1 in both of these two outcomes. Let's have a look here. We've got outcome 2 rather, and outcome 2 in the structural component, outcome 2 in the symmetry and point mass. And you'll notice that because we've got that point mass in between the components, Fusion knows that that mass in between is then going to be pushing the handles a little bit further out. So it's got a bit more structural integrity to it in regards to the placement of the material in there. If I can open this one up nicely, annoyingly, nothing. Let me change the model view and see if it's going to give me anything. It doesn't want to give me anything. That's fine. Yeah, it's not giving me anything, annoyingly, but we'll just have to have a look at the thumbnails, at least on these ones. So you can see the results between outcome 3 within the symmetry and point, and outcome 3 within the normal structural study. Again, got the arms in between the different connector points, and then we've got a bit more symmetry, which we can't really see too much inside of just these pictures over here, just the thumbnails. It is trying to load, but it doesn't look like it's wanting to play ball today. So we'll have to leave it there for now then, I think. But yeah, those are essentially all of the updates, a lot of updates to get through, again, from the last year, from the last 12 months. I hope that's been beneficial for you. If you have any further questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below, or get in contact with your sales contact here at Man and Machine. Other than that, thank you very much all for your time today, and I will see you again a little later. Goodbye.
Thank you, Cameron, for an excellent presentation. As you can see, we have an abundance of new additions to the Fusion license this year, so I think he did a really good job at taking us through them all in such great detail in such a short amount of time. But something I just wanted to point out is I'm particularly excited and impressed by Autodesk's ability to take on feedback from their actual user base, especially when it comes to the machining side of things. I think a lot of the changes to things like deburr and adaptive clearing are something that I've heard in conversation with some of our clients, and you can see that they've really taken that on board with the new changes they've made this year. And I also think it's worth noting how many of the features are included within your base Fusion license, which is already within your product design manufacturing collection. You can pick that up and use it. As soon as our presentation ends today, things like the incline flats, features such as a parameter auto update, I think that I think it's quite exciting that that is a capability that you can just pick up and use without having to look into any of the extensions for now. I also, just before I go, wanted to put a little bit of a spotlight on the editing and documentation changes, since although they are a little bit less exciting and fun to demonstrate as some of the other features, I think that when speaking with some of my customers, the not being able to standardize some of their documentations might be what held them back from rolling Fusion out as their CAD solution within the drawing office. So I think that that might give Fusion a bit more adaptability for a greater client base. So I hope that you guys find that useful. And yeah, I mean, for now, that's all from us. I think we're going to have a short break now. Grab yourself a cup of tea, and we'll be back for AutoCAD 2024 and what's new within AutoCAD. Thank you.